Hey, and thank you so much for tuning into this show this morning with WealthyMe. This morning we have Capital Legacy with us in the studio. We have Karl from Capital Legacy. As you know, we've been promoting National Wills Week from the 26th to the 30th of October. And we have the regional manager from Capital Legacy with us this morning. And we're so excited to have him with us this morning. He's just going to help us demystify some of the myths and the importance of having your last will and testament drafted. So, Karl, thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.
Karl, don't you just want to share with us a little bit about Capital Legacy and what's your unique value proposition?
Absolutely. Capital Legacy is the biggest wills provider in South Africa and estate administrator.
Awesome.
We are a growing company that's based in Bryanston, and our core mission is to make sure as many South Africans as possible have up-to-date and valid wills in place. Our value proposition is that we offer a complete turnkey solution to all of our clients, from a complimentary service to draft their wills, unlimited amendments to those wills, free safekeeping and collection of those wills, and of course everything is done in-house to allow for the most efficient way to wrap up estates when clients do pass away.
That's fantastic. That's an amazing value proposition. Karl, so National Wills Week. Why is there even such a thing as National Wills Week? Why should we promote National Wills Week?
Well, that's a very good question, Reagan. Thank you. National Wills Week is a great initiative by the Law Society of South Africa. It was instituted for the mere fact that they needed to raise awareness to wills and the lack of wills in South Africa. The stats are actually quite shocking. 75% of South Africans do not have up-to-date and signed wills in safe custody, which obviously brings a lot of issues when people do pass away. So it's an initiative that normally runs for a week every year, generally in September, but this year, because of COVID, it was pushed back to the last week of October. But of course, at Capital Legacy, this is our bread and butter, and we do this throughout the year, 365 days a year.
Fantastic. So you've heard that. I also want to touch on what are some of the consequences for families where a loved one dies without having a valid will in place, or without having a written will. What are some of those consequences, Karl?
There are many consequences. Firstly, you forfeit your right to testate, which means you've been given a right in South Africa to allow anybody to inherit from your estate. By not drafting a will, you forfeit that right. Now that brings up a lot of issues such as family feuds. We've got a lot of family members that all of a sudden come out of the woodwork to claim from your estate. The legislation does dictate on interstate succession, which means there is a definitive way in which your estate gets divided up depending on your family tree. But of course, if you don't have a will in place, for example, if you want your children to inherit without a trust in place, their inheritance would go to what we call the Guardian Government Fund, which means once a month you would have to drive to Pretoria to go claim against that fund in order to look after the basic sustenance of your dependents. Which is obviously very ineffective and inefficient process. So by drafting a will, which is the most important document you will ever sign, alleviates all of those problems. So and we sit with it on a daily basis with families fighting over the remaining estate of a late person, and by simply drafting a will, you clear that all up.
So you heard that not having a will and the consequences of not having a will. Just imagine your inheritance goes to the Guardian's Fund, or the government needs to administer your kids' inheritance, your assets. We all know that government is not the most efficient administrator of assets, but we're not here to hammer or nail government. But what we're trying to get to you is the importance of taking the step and making sure that you plan for the day that you die. Now, we've heard earlier on that 75% of South Africans don't have a valid will. Now that just causes an administration nightmare for everyone that is involved. I know Capital Legacy has been running a survey over the last month trying to determine or trying to figure out why South Africans don't have a valid will. Karl, this morning, would you share with us why South Africans just don't have a will?
Very interesting. So it's a threefold answer. Firstly, it's perception. People think it's a complicated process. People think it's a costly process, which obviously, as you know, with capital legacy, that's not true. Secondly, education. I think as a society, particularly in South Africa, people just don't understand the value of a will and the importance of having a will in place. So education, teach people, and the more we teach, the more people understand the value thereof.
Of course.
And then thirdly is South Africans generally like to leave things to the last minute. We've got this immortal kind of persona where, we don't think anything's going to happen to us, and we don't want to have the doom and gloom kind of conversation around death. Okay. And our, the old cliche that there's only two things that are certain in life, and that's death and taxes.
Of course.
So we're trying to get the message out there, get it done now, and then you don't have to worry about it in the future. And obviously, as your family dynamic changes, such as having new kids or getting remarried, revisited, we allow for unlimited amendments to make sure everything's always in place.
So there you've got it. Stop procrastinating. That sounds like the number one reason why South Africans don't have a will. Just get it done. Reach out to us, reach out to Capital Legacy, and make sure you get this important document signed, keep it in safe custody, and make sure you give your family peace of mind. They deserve it at least. Karl, just before we close off, I just want to paint a scenario just to drive home the message and the importance of having a will versus dying interstate. I was thinking, here's Reagan Mitchell, married to Kim, two beautiful kids. My mom is dependent on me, so I take care of my mom. I also take care of my younger sibling. But now I don't have a will. So if I had a will and I wrote my will, I would say, okay, I'd like my wife to inherit, my kids to inherit, I'd like to take care of my mom, I'd like to take care of my younger sibling.
Yes.
But because I don't have a will, and I die, interstate succession really, if you read the law, is only going to take care of my wife and kids.
100%.
If I don't have kids, if I don't have a wife, then my parents inherit.
100%.
And if they're not there, then only my siblings inherit. So can you just emphasize the importance of having a will in that scenario?
Again, it comes to your right to testate, your right to appoint who gets what from your estate. By simply not having a will, you forfeit that. So then, as you mentioned and eloquently stated, your spouse and children would get a equal share.
Yes.
To a minimum of 250,000 Rand for your spouse, and that would be it. There would be nothing left for your mother, nothing left for your sibling that you take care of. They would have to then, hopefully, they've got a good relationship for your spouse to then take care of them. But of course, if you put that in a will, you can make provisions to make sure that your sibling is still taken care of, to make sure that your mom is still taken care of. And this is exactly what we deal with on a daily basis at Capital Legacy. Family feuds, family coming out of the woodwork, everybody trying to claim against your estate, and especially if it's interstate. Yeah. Because anybody that is connected to you, be it a spouse, a second spouse, and of course children, whether it's in wedlock or out of wedlock, they've got a claim against your estate. And it's a hard conversation to have.
Well, I hope we've managed to convince you, or otherwise, change your mind for you to take the first step to make sure that your will is up to date. Karl, just before you go, tell us about Capital Legacy. What does it cost to draft a will? What does it cost to keep your will in safe custody? And maybe also just share a little bit about your innovative legacy protection plan.
Thank you, Reagan. Okay. So let's start off with the will, which is obviously our core mission, is to make sure more South Africans have valid and up-to-date wills in place. We offer that service as a complimentary service, so it's absolutely free. We do not charge. We send out what we call a testamentary consultant to go see clients. We draft the will. We allow for unlimited amendments. We have a courier company that comes and collects your will so that we can keep an original copy in safe custody. And then during that consultation, my testamentary consultant would educate the client on the pitfalls of dying. It's all well and good having a valid will in place, but there are consequences and costs. So there are legal fees, there are costs to wrapping up an estate. We then propose a solution so that it truly allows the client to leave a legacy behind when they do pass away, instead of everybody taking money out of your estate and really leaving nothing for your family behind. So in a nutshell, it's a complimentary service. It's seen as an education consultation with a solution to allow your clients to truly leave a legacy behind.
Fantastic, thank you so much. To the WealthyMe followers out there, please be so kind as to share this post. Someone in your timeline might benefit from this information. Help us reach our goal of 250 drafted and signed wills this week. We're running a competition, as you know. There's one lady that's running and running. She's in the lead. Hopefully she wins. Thank you so much, Karl and Capital Legacy, for joining us today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Bye and God bless you.